Welcome to Greek for a Week. I'm glad that you are looking at another video this week. And this week we are continuing our study in the book of First Thessalonians, chapter 2, specifically verses 5 and 6, which again is a part of the larger paragraph of verses 1 through 12. I probably will stop here at verse 6, and next week will likely be a diagram that will demonstrate the flow of the text from verses 1 through 6. And then the following week, I'll move on to verses 7 through 12, interact with those throughout the next couple of weeks. And then I will do a diagram of 7 through 12. And then I'll try to put a diagram together of all of verses 1 through 12 because I want to make sure that we can see a feel for how Paul structures this entire paragraph, especially given the negation and the contrast of what it is that Paul does, as well as what it is that Paul does not do, especially as it relates to his ministry to the Thessalonians. So we have here we never came with flattering speech or with flattering words, as you know, nor with a pretext for greed. God is witness. Nor seeking glory or praise from men, nor from you or from others. So these two verses are interesting because, again, one, there's a lot of negation. Okay, we can circle all of those terms that negate the clause that follows it. So we do have that in this particular text, these particular verses here. You can see the negation. But I also want to bring out what it is that Paul, as a result, what he did do. And that's coming up later in the passage. So here's our first conjunction for, which is explanatory from the preceding context in verse 4. Explanatory. Now, he says here, we never came. So here's the we came here, and that is a first person plural, aorist passive indicative of ginomai. And then your en lago, as well as the en prophesy. Both of those are the means of, you could say, flattering speech, and by the means of a pretext for greed. You could say by the means of, or you could say the instrument. So what Paul's trying to say here is, we did not use the instrument of flattering speech, nor did we use the instrument of greed to preach to you or to bring the gospel to you, which goes all the way back to verses 1 through 2. It's the boldness to preach the gospel, really, is what he's talking about throughout this entire paragraph. And he says, God is witness. And so what you have here is you have two nominatives. This would be your nominative subject, and then martus would be your predicate nominative. And that's why I said God is witness. You can supply is in the nominative, predicate nominative construction. Now you have a participle in verse 6, zetuntes. Present active participle, nominative masculine, singular of zeteo or zeteo. Probably a circumstantial participle. I think we're just basically saying, while we didn't come to you with these things, that was flattering words, pretext for greed, we were not seeking glory either. So this is basically happening at the same time, which would indicate a circumstantial participle. So we were not seeking what? We were not seeking glory here, doxon, glory or praise, specifically sourced in men. So the X here, from man, or from men, in this case it's plural, it would be source. And then he is here from you, as well as from others. These uses of apa also would indicate source. So I think Paul's trying to say here in verse 6 is the source of our words that we use to preach the gospel, again, going all the way back to verses 1 and 2, was God himself. And it was not sourced in, the praise for sure was not sourced in men, and it was not sourced in you, and it was not sourced in others. So Paul, again, is trying to help the Thessalonians see by his example what it is that he did preach the gospel, what he didn't do, verses 5 and 6. And he adds 2 words to help us as the reader know that the Thessalonians know this. And he says, as you know. Have a great week. That was verses 5 and 6. We're going to diagram 1 through 6 next week.